Alright, after what feels like 2,000 years, I've finally gotten the grade 2 and the grade 1 uh, from the original set 11 that I've been waiting to upgrade this deck into. So you already know it's going to be my premium Kagero deck. Um, the additions have definitely. Oop, I'm missing a card from my Jizo. There we go. The additions have definitely made this deck change a little bit in terms of what exactly the the main goals of the deck are, what the main play style is. In terms of like gift markers and stuff like that, it's Overlord. You're obviously still just trying to kill your opponent by repeatedly deal hitting them with your Vanguard, but the focus is more on Overlord the Rebirth now. And yeah, I'm gonna just get into it. It's a very uh, you know basic thing. Starter is a V starter. We have to play the V starter because this gets us 2 cards if we go second, and if we go first, it guarantees us a card. The D starters don't, so we gotta have that. The grade 3s, we have a 2-2 split of Dragonic Overlord the Cross, 2 of the ones from V and 2 of the original Legion. So in the last one, we played 3 copies of the V version, 1 of the original. The reason that we have switched it now is because uh, in the other one, the goal was to use the new overdressed perfect guards that would say if you have 2 or less cards in hand, you don't discard. Well, since we switched out the perfect guards, we don't necessarily need this to be our ride anymore, like our first ride. So we are fine with cutting this down to 2 and bumping this up to 2 so we see this more consistently because technically this is a main ride, but it's only a main ride because we play 3 copies of our actual main ride, which is Dragonic Overlord the Rebirth. Um, I went a little into him last time. I'll go again in case you guys don't remember. Um, Beginning of battle phase, lock all your rear guards, and then if it's 2 or more, I believe it is. Nope, you just have to lock 1 or more for the first one. So he gets a counterblast. You can counterblast and discard 1 to restand him. Very good, very very good. And then the other one is if you have enough damage and you have a full board locked, you discard to restand him, and then you get a force marker. So the idea is, and obviously he can copy any Overlord from deck. Um, so we have the old cards that add damage to you, so that we can try to get as many force markers on Vanguard as we can early on. So your general game is going to look kind of like uh, riding him, getting a Force 1, putting out on Vanguard, not Force 2 anymore, and then, you know, meeting the conditions to get his extra gift marker, and then the next turn you're going to ride into this and do the Legion. Your Legion's going to have an extra 40k power with how force markers work, and you're just going to kill your opponent there. That is the general game plan for that. And the last grade 3 is 2 of the End because it is the Legion mate for the original Cross. And the V1 is a lot better than the Overdress one for this deck because this gives us 3 Vanguard attacks. And yeah, that it's not changed a whole lot in terms of the grade 3. You're still playing the same ones as I did in the last video, but this time it's just more of a heavy focus on this to get into this. This deck can also still, because it's set up this way, it can also still go Force 2, and you just don't have to worry about spamming the Force 1 with this guy. It just depends on where you are specifically in the game, but this version can cater either way, whereas the other version, it felt like you kind of had to play Force 2 because Force 2 is the better one. But this one, you have the option for Force 1, which is really nice. But if you ever look at a situation and you're like, oh man, like Force 1 isn't going to cut it here, just go Force 2 and just bash face. That is the easiest thing Overlord can do. So that is it for grade 3s. grade 2s, we have, of course, for Igniroad, he's going to search out our win condition or our so-called backup Vanguard. So very good. He also is a little bit of a beater. 4 copies of the uh, gosh, I can never remember his name. Breath Dragon. There we go. Um, he's your other Vanguard ride if you need one, and he can also get you draws if you kill rear guards, which is really good. But there's not really, like, I guess, a really great thing to put in this slot. I really like it just because it's free, and free things are always kind of good. And of course, the ooh, almost dropped all that. The last grade 2, which is very important, is the Breath of Demise Vulcan. So Vulcan is one of the damage dealers. Actually, let me just pull out the other one, because they both have the same ability. So one's a grade 1, one's a grade 2. On place, you counterblast 1, deal yourself a damage, end of turn. You can shuffle a damage back to deck. So there's 2 very important things about this. First of all, if you're playing against something like, I don't know, Steam Maidens that really want that, like, counterblast to call out their Gear Cat, well, if you're stuck riding one of these, you're swinging under. So you can potentially damage deny for the time being. But the other important thing is they're rear guards that you're going to call to field to get the damage, meaning you don't feel bad dropping like these and a couple other ones for your Rebirth, to fill up the board, because this is going to help you get to that extra force marker on that last battle. So yeah, these are, I swear, I've been looking for these for like half a year, and like just nobody had them, but somebody put them like on Amazon, and I was like, oh, thank God. I've been waiting for them, right? So grade 1s, like I said, we're playing 4 copies of this. It's always good to see. We still have the tried and true Lava Flow Dragon and the one of copy of Hishat. I think this is still a very fine ratio. The extra 5k comes up sometimes, so I kind of like having this over this. And also, I never feel like this is strictly better than this, because if we swap these ratios around and I ran 1 of Lava Flow and 4 of this, if I don't ride this card significantly is worse. Whereas if I draw this later and I'm missing something still, or I just want to deck thin, I can still do it with this, which is very important. So those 2 are still very important. And last up is the Sentinels for the grade 1s. We have 3 copies of Flare Trooper Dumjid and 1 copy of Elementaria Sanctitude. So if you're playing premium, this feels like an auto include. Obviously, some decks don't really have a spot for it. Some decks like to do funny things with their guards. This deck doesn't really have anything super fun to do, so it's fine to play the one of this. But this guy right here, he's got a really fun ability. You can Soul Blast 1 when your Vanguard is attacked when he's on rear guard to move him to the guard circle. So this means if you look at your hand and you're like, oh man, like I have a lot of cards. I have cards that I could commit to the board for the Rebirth to get that 5, but I have PGs. Well, if we played the old PGs, it would feel bad. But these, you can throw them in there. You're like, sure, man, I'll put them face down. If you retire them, you retire them. But if you don't, hey, I've got extra guard on board. So that is the really good thing about this card. I think this makes the deck a lot better. This can also, not that I have it in the works or anything, hint, hint, but this also makes Dragonic Lawkeeper very good, because Dragonic Lawkeeper wants to see your board state and your opponent's board state, how many rear guards you each have, so you can just call him down knowing you can get him back if you need to. So this card is a very good addition to Conroe. Not every deck is obviously going to play it, but this deck is definitely going to love this card. And then going on to the triggers, obviously the Golden Mary, the over trigger, what do you do against that, right? We're playing a good old fashioned, nothing too smart, no thinking involved, 11 crit. Yeah, we we want our opponent dead as quickly as we can. This is going to help us do it. Um, Obviously, when we get to the history collection, some of these crits will be changed out for the, I think it's Dragon Knight in the Shat, who will get you the draw on damage checks, so you'll have crits that are draw triggers, which is really nice. For now, this ratio is very good still. I don't think you'll ever drop the stride crits down below 4. You might cut these. They might cut like one of these out so you can play 4 of it, but realistically, the idea of playing 11 crit has not changed for this deck because, you know, we're just focused on kind of high rolling our way to victory. And the 4 heal guards. This won't be changing anytime soon. There's no reason for it to change. The heal guards are just kind of good. They stop your opponent from popping off. Going on to the G zone. Let me get my markers out of the way. I don't think this has changed, but we have one Drachma. He doesn't come up very often, but there was one game where he did come up. Otherwise, you know, he can always be flip fodder if you need it. One copy of, is it Agnos? No, it's Gilgal. Gilgal, again, he doesn't come up very often, but sometimes, like, you'll play against somebody and you'll have the cost to go into him, and you can be like, cool, I'm just going to swing at your board, and it will definitely ruin their day, and you'll countercharge back for it. And then the rest of the game you have free stride, which is kind of good, but, you know, not all the time you'll go into these two. One copy of the Purge. The Purge sometimes is just good to go into. Sometimes you just need to push like a little bit more on your opponent. We had I had a game where I dealt somebody a damage with the Purge, and they hit their overtrigger, and then their overtrigger just didn't activate, and then we both had to sit there like, ooh, that's rough. So the Purge still does work. 2 copies of Flare Trooper Dumjid, Dumjid Valor. This card is still kind of insane. You can always first stride this card, and your opponent has to look at you and be like, do I take this entire turn, or what do I do? Because, you know, if they take your turn, you could just crit and kill them there, which is the high roll of this deck. 2 Ziegenberg. Ziegenberg doesn't come up very often. He can easily get changed out, but, you know, at least he looks nice. The things I would change it for is my last 2 one-of spot, which would be the Dragon Rider Boracat, and then the Zambus Dragon. So Zambus Dragon is a pretty much free board clear, which is very nice. And then he gives your guys I think just your grade 3s 10k. But this guy, on release, everyone was like, this card is so bad. But let me tell you, there are lots of times that, like, people will just play into not having rear guards, and then you just are like, well, I'm just gonna swing at you with like 3 crit and 4 drive checks. I'm just gonna kind of go in, and people are going, that's kind of scary. So this card does put in some good work. I really like this card. So I think I would probably cut. If I had to make a quick change, I would probably switch a copy of Ziegenberg out for one of each of these. But realistically, like I said, you're not really... Striding is not the main gameplay of this deck. Like, all these cards are very nice if you can go into them. But realistically, you're going to go into one of them, and then the next turn you're going to kill your opponent. Or you're going to try to kill your opponent, depending on what their hand setup is looking up. That's just kind of how this deck plays. It's a very aggressive, turn 4, turn 5 deck, depending on how you go about it. And then the the G guards. So we play 3 Denial Griffin. We have the one of this. This is really good. Like, this comes up to just, you know, your opponent will clear off some of their board through effects and stuff, and you'll just be like, okay, well, I'm going to Soul Blast 1, and I'm not going to discard anything, and this is an extra perfect guard. It's just very nice to have. Sometimes your opponent has something very pesky in the back row. You need to pop it. This will do the job. Obviously, this is the biggest shield value we have in Kagero. because your opponent's Vanguard swings, this will get power for each of their open. It's not great, but it does something. And then if you ever just need to kill their entire back row because their back row is a problem, you have that. Uh, I still play 7 G guards because, again, you don't really need to stride that much in this deck. You pretty much stride once, and then you're like, well, we're gonna kill you this turn. The only reason that is not happening is if you just do not have this card in your hand, which you will normally have this card in your hand, but if you don't have this card in your hand, you'll probably be going into a stride. Heck, sometimes even like staying down on like the Rebirth is kind of insane because then you'll just keep farming for force markers on your Vanguard circle, keep getting bigger and bigger. Very good. But yeah, that is the list. Not crazy changes in terms of you know new G Zone stuff. We'll have to wait for the history collection. But the main deck definitely changed a lot, and I feel like it's made the deck a lot more flexible and a lot more powerful because you can potentially pop off earlier. So that's going to be it for this one. Like, comment, subscribe if you like this. And then in the last profile, you know, I asked if people like the layout where I had all the cards kind of fanned out. This one I went through it card by card just because I wanted to really give this deck some love. So just let me know which version you guys prefer in the comments, and I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Peace.